Hello and welcome to this tutorial on Substance Painter. My name's North, and I'm still very new to this program and like editing VRChat stuff in general. So I'm by no means an expert, especially with Substance Painter. I literally just learned this a couple days ago, but I did want to share some of what did to make my skin for this VRChat avatar, the wolf, the male wolf by Julia Winterpaul. Just because I've been having a lot of friends asking me for help with retexturing their own models. So I figured this could be helpful for other people, and also it'll keep me from having to keep giving the same tutorial over and over again. I can just direct them right to the video. So again, this is just what I did to make my VRChat skin with this model. It should help you get started on your own. And again, it's just a simple tutorial. It's not digging too deeply into Substance Painter, which can do a ton of stuff. Like, we're not even going to use this shelf part down here. But it will be enough to get you started on your custom avatar texture and basically get a texture completed so that you can get it into Unity and get it up into VRChat. And I'll be creating some other tutorial about actually uploading it into Unity in the future, but let's just get right into Substance Painter here. I'll show you how some of this works. I know it's a little bit intimidating. There's a lot going on. So here's a quick overview of the layout of the app. You have all your tools here on the left. You also have your texture set list here on the right. These are I guess the different UV maps you can be working with for the parts of the model. So you can see here we have the UV map. This is the texture on the body. So you can see these are the legs, I think, and this is the face, and this is the chest. So everything on here is mapped onto the body in some way. And the nice thing with this texture set list here is that this will let you deselect. And for this particular model, there's basically two pieces to it. There's the body and there's the tail. So I'll usually deselect the tail while I'm working on the body. That way you can kind of see the butt better, basically. So we'll just get moving right along here. So like I said, you can remove the tail or show the tail if you want. You just want to make sure you're obviously on the right texture set list you want to be on too. Because if you're on the tail, you're not going to be able to draw on the body and vice versa. Because you can see this is the texture you're working with here. Okay, so moving right along, you also have your layers right here. I'm just going to click on these really quick. You can see it has to kind of load this stuff in. So when you first start up the program, every time it has to load all the different layers and stuff. Okay, so now everything's loaded in here. So yeah, this is the kind of list of all the layers and layer folders that you have. And then right down here are the properties for that particular layer. And we'll get into that later, but I'm just kind of showing you a quick overview. Like I said, you also have the shelf down here. We're not going to be using that shelf at all in what we're doing now. Again, it's just a very basic tutorial on kind of how to reskin. It's not, or recolor, or retexture, or however you want to say it, your model here. It's not going to be about adding all sorts of crazy materials and doing all the other fancy stuff that Substance Painter can do. So, all right, so let's go ahead and show you now the way to actually move around your model and the UV map itself. So the first thing is to show you really quick, you can change how much of the space you want to be using to be looking at the model versus looking at the UV map texture itself. For me, sometimes I'm mostly just working in the model view, and other times I actually want to be kind of working a little closer, on a smaller detail or something, right here on the map. Depending on where the geometry, if it's in some weird part of the arm or something where it's hard to kind of see here, it might actually be easier to draw it onto the texture itself. So I think there are hotkeys or maybe it's something up here. I don't know. You can play around with this a little bit. If you want to only see the 3D view, you can do that, or however you want to show it. For me, I just kind of having both of them up to some degree, because you can always put that one away almost all the way and just work here. But I like kind of having a little bit of the view of both, so I can kind of see what's going on. That way too, when you're working on certain areas, up here by the hair or the ears, you can run into the problem where you draw on the ear and it ends up on the face when you don't mean to do that, either drawing on the UV map or drawing here. So for me, again, it's helpful just to have both up as I'm working. So yeah, let's go over the camera controls here so you can actually move them all around like I'm doing right now. So you're going to go ahead and hold down the Alt key, and then you can use the left mouse button to rotate your model. And you can rotate like that or like that. You're going to hold down the Alt and middle mouse button, or in my case, I actually do Alt Control and the left mouse button because I don't have a middle mouse button. And that's going to let you pan or move around the model. So that's also very helpful to be able to do. But then also you obviously are going to want to get in a little closer to the model, so you want to zoom in. That's just using the scroll wheel down and up if you want to zoom in and out. And you can also hold down Alt and use the right mouse button to zoom in and out if you, for some reason, want to do that instead of, if let's say you don't have a scroll wheel, you could do that instead of using the scroll wheel. Oh, so one more thing about the view here. If you ever end up in like a weird view, like I come from Photoshop, so I'll press B to try to go to the brush tool, and in this case, actually it's 1. But yeah, if I press B to go to the brush tool, suddenly I end up in like this weird view. There's this whole list of views from this dropdown that are like all the different, like you can see the normal map, or you can see metallic or roughness or whatever. So we're mostly going to be working on, for this tutorial, again, we're just keeping it simple. We're mostly going to be working on the base color layer, but you could also switch to the material layer. That'll kind of show you a little more how the model might look actually in like VRChat, like in the world, because you get a little bit more shadow and lighting. It's not perfect, like it probably will look a little bit darker than I think it'll actually look in VRChat, but at the same time, it still can be helpful. You might want to maybe brighten your textures a little bit or something like that to kind of like make them work with the lighting and shading you're going to get. While you're in this material view, you can hold down Shift and drag the right mouse button to change where the lighting is while you're in the material view. And that can be helpful too. Like, let's say you want to see how the light looks if it's really bright on your butt or whatever, where it's not where the camera, the lighting is not by default. You can go ahead and just hold down Shift and drag the right click or right mouse button, and that'll let you change where the lighting is. So we're going to go back to base color though, because again, like I said, we're going to be mostly working there. Material I've been using more just to kind of check where things are as I work through the model. And now we can go over the different tools. So we're only going to focus on the basics you need here. They have a couple different tools here. In a way, there's like not a whole lot compared to Photoshop or something, but there's also like just enough, I don't know. But again, we're not even going to be touching some of these tools at all. But the main ones we're going to be going over are the Paint tool, which again, the hotkey for that is 1. The Eraser tool, the hotkey for that is 2. And we will be going later into the Polygon fill tool, and the hotkey for that is 4. So yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, so let's start with the Paint tool. So when you're using the Paint tool here, you can see there's like 2 circles on the cursor that you're drawing on. Or hang on, let's turn this off. Okay, there's like a dotted circle and then like a inner circle. That's the hardness. So anything outside of that inner circle is going to be kind of feathered, so it'll be like softer. So you'll see like if I draw here, or I should create a new paint layer really quick just to show you that. And don't worry about what I'm doing right now, because I'm going to go ahead and go through all of this stuff in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and draw here, and you can see that it's kind of like softer around the edges, while like you can see here, for instance, like this texture is very hard. For me, I like drawing it with the harder line, but you can kind of do anything in between if you want. What you do is you hold down the Control key and you drag up and down with the left mouse button, or sorry, the right mouse button. The left mouse button rotates the brush. You hold down the Control key and you go up and down with your mouse, holding down the right mouse button, and that's how you can change the hardness. So again, if I want the hardness to be fully hard, I can go ahead and just move that circle until it's all the way to the outside, and then I'm getting a hard line. Or again, if I want to have it be a little softer, I can do that, and you can kind of adjust that however you want to adjust that. So adjust the size, which I was just doing there by mistake. You also hold down Control and also hold down the right mouse button, but you're going to move your mouse left and right instead of up and down. So again, hold down Control, the right mouse button, going up and down changes the hardness, and then going left and right changes the size of the brush you're using. So the erase tool is also going to be exactly the same with that. You can see like they're independent of each other. So when you go to the erase tool now, we have totally different settings again. So again, you can just go here and kind of resize it however you want and change the hardness however you want. So if we go ahead and look at our layers right here, you can see we have a ton of stuff in the layers in this particular Substance Painter file. So these are all just what come with the Substance Painter file for this particular model, which again is the male wolf from Julia Winterpaw. And I think just to keep it simple for now, we're just going to go ahead and kind of remove these other main color layers and just show you the base. So this is like the base layer here. You'll see if I go ahead and kind of uncheck the little eye here, that's how you can like see or not see the layers. And so we're going to uncheck the body base for a second. You'll see like now it has no texture. Like if it has that kind of like checkerboard, that means it's transparent. Like there's nothing on the model right now. So we'll click that back because we actually want to have a texture, obviously. And so basically whatever your character's main kind of color is, that's what you probably want to make the color of the body base. And then you can kind of build on top of that from there. And that's kind of the way that painting in Substance Painter works. You kind of want to start with a base color and you're always just kind of adding on top of it layers upon layers. So for this base, let's say our character is, I don't know, yellow colored or something like that. I'm just trying to choose a color that's down here so I can show you this. So if we go ahead and choose the color, that's inside this body base folder. You can see these little folders. So we just expanded it. We went down to color and selected it. Then you can go to the properties and scroll down and you'll see there's a color bar right here. If you click on that, this is where you can change the color of this fill layer to whatever you want it to be. This eyedropper is actually really cool because it will actually let you eyedrop outside of the program. So you can have like your image of your reference for your character or whatever you want to have out there. And you could take it out of the program like I'm doing right now, and it will actually grab colors. I'm just grabbing colors from my wallpaper, which is like a rock, which is why it's gray and black. But that'll let you grab colors that are exact to your character if that's what you want to do. But for now, again, I'm just going to grab one from here so you can kind of see how that eyedropper works. So what we'll make him kind of like a, I don't know, maybe like an orange color. That's kind of cool. Sure, we'll do kind of an orangey red color. So that's like the base color now for this character. So for the purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to be working with two different main types of layers. Really, we'll only be working with one type of layer, I think. But I still want to show you both of them so you kind of get an idea of what they are, because it can be a little confusing, especially if you're just starting out with Substance Painter. So we have the paint layer, and we also have the fill layer. We're mostly going to be working with fill layers, because those are what let you, again, like change the color to whatever you kind of want it to be. But the paint layer would let you also paint on the model. And again, we'll explain how that works in a minute. It's a little bit confusing and can be a little bit like complicated to kind of wrap your head around. But once you get it, I think it'll kind of click for you. So I'll just show you what the paint layer is first. And again, we're not going to be using this a whole lot. But so I created a new paint layer. We'll just choose a random color. We'll choose blue or something like that. And so you can see the way the paint layer works is that if I go ahead and draw on the model here, it's painted on it, which is great. That's what you'd think you'd want. The issue is that if I change the color here to, let's say, green, you can see it didn't change the color of this little squiggle, and I can keep painting. So you can paint multiple colors in a layer, so that's a good plus about a paint layer. The downside is all the changes you're making are to the brush itself, if that makes sense. It's not something that, at least for the purposes of this tutorial, that would be easy to like modify the actual layer itself. So like, let's say you wanted to draw a different color over the color that you use, or you want to tweak the color. It's a lot harder with the paint layer because you can't just like change the color here. You'd have to actually like paint over what you were doing, or probably use some kind of filters and other stuff, which is, again, is like, let's keep it simpler. And use the fill layers instead. So again, instead, we're using fill layers and masks to color the model. So we're going to get into masks in a second. So let me show you what I mean. Again, it might take a little time to kind of wrap your head around this, but let me try my best to explain it. So think of the masks, which are these like black parts of the layers, I guess. In this case, or they're black. They're like a secondary part of the layer. Think of them as like masking tape. So let's say you were trying to paint a stripe or some kind of design, like stencil it onto the hood of a car or something like that. What you would do, right, you'd put masking tape on the parts you didn't want to get paint on, then you'd leave the places exposed where you want the paint to end up going when you paint over it. So this is exactly what the masks are doing. For our purposes, this mask will be binary. So it's either black or it's white. So again, it's either taped over or it's not, essentially. Which again is a little, maybe that's kind of confusing, I don't know. But let me just show you what I mean before I try to explain more. For this particular model, we want to use the lighter outline and white fur layers to make sure we get all the texture detail included that those have. As you can see, we already have some stuff drawn on here, like if I choose like the lighter outline. But what we're going to do is actually clear that so that we can draw our own pattern onto the body. And actually, hang on, let me delete this. Let me delete this paint layer. We don't need it anymore. Okay, so what we're going to do here is right click and we'll choose add black mask. So what the black mask is doing, it's essentially taping over this layer so that right now, like no paint could go on the body because there's been nothing masked out. There's been no tape removed. Maybe this is a confusing way to put it, but hopefully it makes some sense to you. So what we're going to be doing here, you can see it's all black, and the black is like the tape. White in this case then will be like removing the tape, which will then reveal the color underneath. So in this case, we'll just choose a color. Well, we can keep it blue like it was before. So we'll let it stay blue. We'll go back to the mask. The mask is what you'll actually be working with here, not the color. So we'll select the mask. You want to make sure that your brush is set to the white over here, not black, and anything in between will just end up like not showing the color fully through, which is probably not what you want to do in this case. So we're just going to leave it white or black and keep it simple. So again, if you do black, all it's going to do is just add more black, which won't do anything, but white will start to peel away the color on the model, which in this case will just feel like you're painting on the model, which is what you want to be doing. So again, even though it seems a little bit convoluted, essentially what you're doing is you're erasing the mask, which lets the color show through, and when you're doing it, it feels like you're just painting right on the model, which is kind of what we're doing here. So, okay, so let's say that we wanted to also add like a fourth color, since right now we're basically working with three colors. We have the body base, we have the lighter outline, and then we have the white fur as like another thing, another layer you could be working with. Let's say you just wanted to add like a little detail, like one thing I had to do with this model is that there is like an eyebrow layer if you go to the top here, but it's also tied to the eyelashes. So if we change the color here, it's also changing the eyelash color, and I was like, I want the eyelashes to stay black, but I want the eyebrow to match another color on my character, right? So we are going to go ahead and create a new folder, and then we're going to create a black mask on that folder. And then we're going to be creating a new fill layer. And we want to make sure we put that fill layer inside that folder. That way it's masked over by that black mask. So we essentially just created exactly what these other folders are. So again, that's why if you want to create another folder, that'll let you paint another color onto the model. You can just do that and again, put it above or below whatever other layers you're working with. So again, the fill layer here, just to show you, we want to just leave it on color because we're not doing this other stuff. So just leave it on color to keep it simple. We'll choose I don't know, we'll choose like a green or something like that. So that now this is going to be the color of that fill layer. And then we'll just go to the mask here. And again, we're painting white. And when we paint white on the black mask, that'll show through. And in this case, we want to actually be doing the eyebrow. So we'll go ahead and rename the folder. You can just double click on the name to rename it. We'll rename this folder eyebrow color. And we can rename this fill layer just like the other one's color. We can call it color fill or whatever you want to call it in your file. You have the power to call it whatever you want. So now I'm going to show you what's called the Polygon Fill tool. Actually, before I show you the Polygon Fill tool, let me take a second here just to show you two more things with painting that I want to make sure you don't miss. Like, I could totally see someone pausing the video after this and be like, I'm ready to do it. There are these two things that are very important that will like save you a lot of grief, okay? So we'll get back to the Polygon Fill tool in a second to do the eyebrow, but first I'm going to show you here two quick kind of, I guess they call them like subtools or whatever you want to call them. One is Symmetry. So normally when you draw on the model, right, you can see that it's just kind of going wherever you want it to go. And sometimes you want that. It might show up as like more natural because people aren't naturally symmetrical, right? But for most patterns and most characters, there probably is going to be some symmetry to it. Because at the same time, even though we're not totally symmetrical, we are also, you know, we all have two hands and two legs and two ears or whatever. So what you can do is press the L key on your keyboard, and that'll take us into symmetry mode. You can see there's also a little button for it here. What that does is that you can see the cursor already. When you draw on one side, it'll end up also drawing on the other side. So that makes it really easy. Again, assuming your character does mostly have a symmetrical pattern to them, you don't have to draw it twice. You can just draw it once, and then it'll show up on the character on both sides. So that's really useful. Definitely use that tool. But also, you know, if you got in and it was already like turned on for the file, again, you press L to turn it off if you don't want to have symmetry. So you can always toggle that back and forth. Another thing that I didn't use a whole lot, but could be useful for you, I believe it's called like the lazy drawing tool or something like that. You can press D to toggle it on. All you have to do is press it. You don't have to hold it. You can see it'll give you like this little shaded area. What this does is it actually lags where you're painting behind the cursor. You know what? Let me make the cursor a little bit smaller because that'll make this a little more obvious what I'm doing here. There we go. So it'll actually lag the cursor behind what you're doing. So you can see, like, if I turn it off, I can just do that, right? And I could like make a little squiggle or whatever. But you can see even here, this is way smoother than that. What it does is it actually like smooths the line by like letting the line kind of lag behind your cursor. So again, if I have it on, you can see if I do this, it's kind of lagging behind the cursor, but it's getting like way smoother than what I get if I try to draw it on my own. And you can set the distance option here up in like the brush options. And that'll choose like how far behind it lags, if it's like a little bit quicker or slower. And obviously the slower it is, like the more precise you'll kind of get that curve. But it also might be like, you know, it might kind of screw up your flow, right? Like if it's super, super high, then like it's taking so long to get to where you are, you're like, forget what you were going to draw in a way, right? But again, so you can play around with that distance function here and just kind of decide what works best for you. But okay, we're not trying to draw on the chest. We're actually trying to fill in the eyebrows. So we'll go ahead and just undo here. I mean, undo in this program is just Control Z, Control Y to redo. So again, Control Z to undo, Control Y to redo, which I guess most programs probably have. I guess you could use those up here too if you wanted to. But what we're going to do is do the eyebrow. So the problem with coloring in the eyebrow by hand, so you can see, right, this is kind of a ridiculous example a little bit, but you can see like if I do that, first of all, I'm coloring onto the face now, which I just want to color the eyebrow, not the face. Also, if we now turn the camera, you'll see I didn't color the back part of the eyebrow because it's actually like kind of a mesh piece here. So anything that's like a mesh piece like that, like the eyebrow or like the ear or the hair or something like that, or like this little hair right here. Again, like you could, oh shoot, I still have, I still have the lazy drawing on. There we go. Okay, so like you can see, like you can just draw right on it, which is cool. And sometimes you want that. You want to be able to draw between seams and stuff like that, and that makes it easier. But like I said, sometimes you just want to select the whole ear and not be by mistake coloring in something next to it. So this is one of those cases. I mean, you could go onto the map here, but also if you draw on the map here, it'll still end up drawing onto like the ear in places that you don't want it to draw. So that's also like not a perfect way to do it all the time. So the easiest way to do this is using this tool called the Polygon Fill tool, which is right here. You can also press 4 to get to it. And you'll see it'll change everything to like a polygon view mode. So in this polygon view mode, by default, you can select a polygon and each one will just color in like one at a time, which would be very annoying if you had to do that. So thankfully, I tell you right now, you don't have to do that. You can actually go ahead and choose this mesh fill mode, and then you can go ahead and just choose the whole mesh and fill it in. Same with the ear or this. I would do the hair, but the hair already has a color on it, so we're just going to kind of show you these here really quick. But yeah, basically it'll let you go ahead and select like just that eyebrow. And this, the other nice thing, like I said, is that it'll also select underneath. You'll get the entire object rather than only kind of the surface of it. So if you do the body, that's like the whole body. So you don't want to do that. But again, for any of the little bits and pieces like the ears or the hair or the eyebrows, that would let you select just one thing. So now, again, we have just the eyebrow being green rather than having the like eyebrow and the eyelashes being green. So I think that pretty much wraps up most of what you'll need to know to color in your own model in Substance Painter. So now we just have one more thing, a bit of a Substance Painter wizardry that was shared with me by this model's creator, Julia Winterpaw. This is how you're going to actually recolor the eyes in this case, because you can see the eyes have more of like a texture on them. So you wouldn't want to just like draw over that because it would probably look really bad. So what you actually want to go ahead and do here is scroll up and choose the eye layer, and then we're going to right click on it and we're going to say add filter, which actually I don't think you can see because it's off the screen, but I promise you there's a button in this drop down that says add filter. You click on it and then you'll see it'll add a filter to this layer. We don't need it to do any of these things. Again, we just need it to do color, and we'll choose the filter, and then you can search for HSL. Or again, you can just find it if you scroll down. It's HSL Perceptive, and that's the filter you want to apply. What this does is it gives you these sliders here, and you can use them to actually change the hue of the eye, which I guess would look kind of look like a yellow eye. I don't know. And you also change the saturation, so you can make it like super yellow, or you could make it a little bit more grayscale, or totally gray, or whatever you want to do there. So again, this will let you kind of recolor the eye to however you want. Unfortunately, on this particular model, the eyes can't be colored two different colors. I know some people have asked about doing that. They do have to be the same color, because you can see like on the map here, there's only one eye. They don't, Julia Winterpaw didn't add two different eyes, but she has said that in the future, on future models of hers, she's hoping to add that as a feature where you could color each eye a different color. So once you're fully happy with your recolor, like let's say we've actually finished coloring this, and this is how we want our character to look here. I'll just make it look a little more complete to drive the point home here. So let's say that's what your character looked like. You had green eyebrows and yellow eyes and brown fur, and then you had like this white fur wherever it was, right? So now what you want to do is you just want to go to File and Export Textures. This is how we're going to get the textures out of Substance Painter so that we can get them into Unity later on. So we'll click Export Textures, and it'll bring up this little window here. And you want to make sure that you're choosing for the output template. We're going to find it here, Unity HD Render Pipeline Metallic Standard. So we're going to set that for output template. And then file type. For this particular model, we're going to be using a Targa, but it could also be a PNG, and I think, again, this creator is moving towards using PNGs in the future, which I think is probably a good idea. It's definitely a better format. The file size will be a lot smaller, although, I don't know, maybe the VRChat SDK might convert it to something else anyway when it goes up into the cloud. I have no idea. But anyway, that's probably more information you need to know. We're just going to get back to the export textures part here. So again, we've chosen the output template here. We've chosen the file type. 8 bits is fine. You can change the size if you want, but if you just leave it as based on each texture set size, in this case, it'll just leave them at the default, which is probably fine. I believe in this case, I think it defaults to 2K. So we can go ahead and click Export, and then you'll see it's exporting the stuff, and now it's exported, and you can click on this Open Output Directory button here, and that'll show you on your computer where the files have actually ended up saving on your computer, so you can do stuff with them. I think by default they save to the folder for Substance Painter. And then you'll have the files, and you'll have the files ready to go for Unity. And that takes me to kind of the end of the tutorial here for now. Again, I will be doing another tutorial in the future about how to actually upload the model to Unity, so we'll go through that. I just wanted to kind of keep this focused on Substance Painter, so hopefully this will help you kind of with the basics on how to recolor your own model here in Substance Painter, and specifically maybe the wolf by Julia Winterball here. And I've also added a link here on the video file to a tutorial that really helps me learn a lot more in-depth what Substance Painter can do, which I still am learning, you know, but at least it'll give you more of an overview if you want to kind of dig deeper and really see what the program can do a little more. That video should be really helpful for you. So good luck and take care. North out.